Joey Jenkins back with you here. In this episode, we're going to call it the Monday Football Wrap-Up Show. Every Monday, we're going to upload a video on our Inland Northwest Sports Facebook page, our Inland Northwest Sports Twitter page, also listentothegame.com, and our YouTube channel. And we're going to give you a recap for your favorite local high school teams and their football scores and give you a little bit of an inside look of what happened on those wonderful Friday nights. We're also going to highlight a bit of the Cougars and the Vandals for you, give you some scores and stories on that. We're going to especially take some time focusing on the Moscow Bears and the Colfax Bulldogs. And really, it started with the Moscow Bears this past weekend. Remember, the Colfax Bulldogs have not started their season yet. You have to wait till September 7th. So it was the Moscow Bears that opened up their season against the Grangeville Bulldogs just this past Friday. The Grangeville Bulldogs are the 2A state defending champs, and they played like it as they took down Moscow 38-10. Now, if you missed the game, remember we have all of the games for the Moscow Bears broadcasted live on AM 1400 ESPN Radio. Also, listentothegame.com. So let's give you a recap of the Grangeville and Moscow game and the big win for Grangeville, and it was the way they started their playing. From the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, they led 14-0 with 2 big touchdowns. Then they even added more to their lead in that second quarter, adding a touchdown and a field goal. So at halftime, Grangeville led 24-0 on their home field. Now Moscow answered back very well. They got an unofficial, I guess you could say, onside kickoff. They ended up getting the ball off their own kickoff. And then they brought in 3 points in that third quarter. They added 7 more in the fourth quarter. So it was a great, really impressive second half for the Moscow Bears, scoring 10 points in the second half after going scoreless in the first 2 quarters. So they looked good in those third and fourth quarters. But that third quarter, again, Grangeville answered with 14 more points on 2 touchdowns in the third. They did not score in the fourth, though, but that was all they needed for a 38-10 win. Now, if you look at the score, you may say, oh no, I'm a little worried for the Moscow Bears. The big thing is, don't worry. It's only the opening game of the season, of course. With just seeing one game, a lot of people want to kind of put a label on what this team will be like or kind of the expectations. Everything needs to just slow down. There's still a lot of football left to be played for the Moscow Bears. And really, overall, when we talked to Phil Helbling last week on Thursday, he talked about ironing out those wrinkles, getting rid of those mental mistakes, and the first game is just nice to get behind and get through. And the Moscow Bears, they did have some mental errors, but when you look at their second half compared to the first half, very good things. Some of the things that I noticed from the first game, the running game struggled a little bit on their inside handoffs. They started to get things rolling in that second half, but I was impressed with their passing. I was impressed with Snyder behind center and playing quarterback. He did very well. He had a good completion percentage rate. He was throwing accurate passes. There were a few drop passes by the wide receivers, but all of that will change and improve as the weeks go on. So I think their passing looked well. They had short screen passes. I think Jack Akey played exceptionally well. He caught a couple of great screen passes that he ended up turning for more yards. So I think the passing was well, and as their offensive line continues to work, I think the running will do well as the season goes on. Looking at scoring for Moscow, there was the field goal by Martin. That was 26 yards out. And then the touchdown was a 5-yard run by Braun. So they got 10 points in this game. They didn't end up losing. But as we look towards next weekend, or I guess I should say this weekend's game against Clarkston, I really think there's some great things to look ahead because you've got to look at the way the Moscow Bears finished it. So the final score of this past weekend was Grangeville 38, Moscow Bears 10. Remember to always tune in to AM 1400 ESPN Radio for all your Moscow Bears games. Again, next one will start this Friday night at Clarkston at 6:45 p.m. You can also tune in on listentothegame.com. So that is your first Monday football wrap-up as we wrap up and give you a recap of the Moscow Bears opening game against the Grangeville Bulldogs. Stay tuned later on in the week. We'll post another video giving you a schedule update for this weekend in local sports. There's a lot going on this weekend, including that Moscow game against Clarkston for their second game of the regular season. And then also later on in the week, coming up around Thursday or Friday morning, we'll have the preview episode for Moscow Bears as they take on Clarkston. I'm Joey Jenkins. Stay with us. Make sure to like us on Facebook. Also follow us on Twitter at InlandNW Sports. We'll see you later on this week.